The morning air on Kepler 442b carried the sharp scent of burned propellant and scorched metal. Sergeant Maya Chen moved methodically through the aftermath of yesterday's skirmish, her boots crunching on the crystalline sand that covered most of the planet's surface. The hegemony forces had retreated at dawn, leaving behind scattered debris and the telltale brass casings that always marked where humans had made their stand. Maya's collection bag clinked softly as she bent to retrieve another spent casing. The Terran Defense Force had strict recycling protocols, especially this far from Earth. Every gram of metal mattered when supply lines stretched across 47 light-years. She examined the casing briefly, noting the manufacturer's stamp and the slight scoring that indicated it had been fired from Corporal Rodriguez's rifle. The young Marine had put up an impressive fight during the night assault. The settlement of New Aberdeen sprawled behind her, its prefabricated structures gleaming in the alien sunrise. 3 suns painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, casting long shadows across the defensive perimeter. The colonists had been lucky. If the hegemony's Vorth shock troops had broken through the line, the evacuation would have turned into a massacre. Still playing janitor, Chen? The voice carried a distinct British accent, tinged with amusement. Maya looked up to see Captain James Worthington approaching, his sniper rifle slung across his broad shoulders. The man was a legend in the TDF, credited with over 300 confirmed kills across a dozen worlds. His weathered face bore the kind of calm confidence that came from years of putting impossible shots through alien skulls at impossible distances. "Someone has to clean up after you, cowboys," Maya replied, straightening up and wiping sweat from her forehead. "Besides, this brass paid for my daughter's education back on Earth. Every casing counts." Worthington chuckled, his gray eyes scanning the horizon where heat waves shimmered above the crystalline dunes. "Fair enough. Though I have to say, watching you work yesterday gave me quite the show. That running shot you made on the Vorth heavy weapons specialist was something else." Maya felt a flush of pride but kept her expression neutral. The shot had been desperate, instinctive. The alien had been setting up a plasma mortar that would have wiped out the eastern defensive line. She'd had maybe 2 seconds to line up the shot while sprinting across open ground, the target nearly 800 meters away and partially concealed behind a boulder formation. "Lucky shot," she said, bending to collect another casing. "Luck?" Worthington's eyebrows rose. "Chen, I've been doing this for 23 years. I know skill when I see it. That wasn't luck. That was pure marksmanship instinct." The compliment from someone of Worthington's caliber meant more than Maya cared to admit. She'd grown up on the factory world of Titan Station, where her mother had worked triple shifts assembling atmospheric processors. Shooting had started as a way to put food on the table, hunting the massive ice rats that infested the station's lower levels. The TDF recruiter had taken one look at her scores and fast-tracked her through sniper school. "What's your longest confirmed kill?" Worthington asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Maya paused, calculating. 2,137 meters. Hegemony officer on Proxima 5 took his head clean off. Worthington whistled low. "Impressive. Most impressive." He was quiet for a moment, studying her with those calculating gray eyes. "Tell me, Chen, how do you feel about a little wager?" Something in his tone made Maya's instincts prickle. She'd learned to be wary of bets, especially from fellow soldiers who had that particular gleam in their eyes. "What kind of wager?" "Well, there's been some talk among the alien contingent about human capabilities. Specifically our shooting abilities." Worthington gestured toward the command post where several Altarian advisors could be seen talking animatedly with human officers. The tall, blue-skinned aliens served as tactical consultants, their four-eyed heads providing enhanced depth perception that made them excellent spotters. The Altarians are convinced that yesterday's performance was an anomaly. They think humans rely too heavily on luck and adrenaline, that we lack the physiological precision for truly long-range work. Worthington's smile had a predatory edge. "They're particularly skeptical about female human soldiers. Something about bone density and muscle fiber composition." Maya felt her jaw tighten. She'd heard similar comments before, usually from species that viewed humans as crude, violent primitives who'd stumbled into galactic civilization through sheer stubbornness. The fact that humans consistently outperformed expectations in combat only seemed to reinforce the belief that they were dangerous rather than skilled. "So what's the wager?" she asked. Worthington pointed toward the eastern horizon, where a line of jagged peaks rose from the desert floor. See that tallest peak? The one that looks like a broken tooth? Maya squinted, shading her eyes with her hand. The mountain was a dark smudge against the colorful sky, wavering in the heat distortion. I see it. 4,000 meters, give or take a few dozen. There's a hegemony observation post up there, abandoned since last month's offensive. Solar panel array on the roof, bright blue, about the size of a dinner plate. Worthington's grin widened. The Altarians are willing to bet a month's rations that no human could hit a target that small at that distance. Not with standard military equipment, not under these atmospheric conditions. Maya felt her heart rate spike. 4,000 meters was well beyond the effective range of most sniper rifles. The bullet would have nearly 10 seconds of flight time, during which wind, humidity, gravity, and the planet's strange atmospheric composition would all work to throw off her aim. It was the kind of shot that existed more in legend than reality. And if I make it? She asked. The Altarians have agreed to recommend human sniper teams for the next 3 major operations. That's prestigious assignments, better equipment, and recognition that could change how the galactic community views our species. Worthington's expression grew serious. But if you miss, it reinforces their belief that humans are unreliable. They'll likely recommend against using human marksmen in future operations. Maya looked down at the brass casing in her hand, then back at the distant mountain. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders like a familiar burden. This wasn't just about proving herself anymore. This was about proving what humanity was capable of to species that still saw them as violent upstarts. When? She asked. Tomorrow morning. Dawn. Better atmospheric conditions and the observation post will be backlit by the sunrise. Worthington extended his hand. What do you say, Sergeant? Ready to show these aliens what a human can do? Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then at the mountain that seemed to mock her from the horizon. 4,000 meters. It was madness. It was impossible. She shook his hand firmly. Let's do it. Word spread through New Aberdeen like wildfire. By evening, the entire settlement buzzed with anticipation and nervous energy. Maya found herself at the center of attention wherever she went, receiving everything from confident nods to worried glances. The commissary fell silent when she entered for dinner, dozens of eyes tracking her movement to an empty table. She tried to focus on her meal, but her mind kept drifting to the technical challenges ahead. 4,000 meters meant the bullet would drop nearly 30 feet during its flight, accounting for the planet's slightly higher gravity. The wind would be unpredictable, especially with thermals rising from the heated crystalline surface. Then there was the atmospheric composition to consider. Kepler 442b's air had a higher nitrogen content than Earth's, which would affect the bullet's trajectory in ways she could only estimate. Mind if I join you? The voice belonged to Dr. Elena Vasquez, the settlement's chief meteorologist. The small dark-haired woman carried a tablet and wore the expression of someone wrestling with complex calculations. Please. Maya gestured to the empty chair across from her. Dr. Vasquez settled down and immediately launched into her data. I've been running atmospheric models for tomorrow morning. The good news is that wind speeds should be relatively low at dawn, probably 5 to 8 kilometers per hour from the southeast. The bad news is that we're expecting thermal inversions around sunrise, which could create unpredictable air currents. Maya nodded, grateful for the information but also feeling the weight of additional variables to consider. What about humidity? Low, maybe 15%. That'll help with visibility but won't do much for your bullet stability. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her voice dropping. Maya, I have to ask, have you ever attempted anything close to this distance before? The honest answer was no. Maya's longest training shot had been 2,800 meters, and that had been under ideal conditions at the TDF Academy on Mars, but something in Dr. Vasquez's expression suggested she needed reassurance, rather than brutal honesty. Every shot teaches you something about the next one, Maya said carefully. Distance is just another variable to calculate. Before Dr. Vasquez could respond, a commotion near the commissary entrance drew their attention. Admiral Chen Qingwei, the senior TDF officer on Kepler 442b, strode into the room flanked by 3 Altarian advisors. The aliens moved with their characteristic fluid grace, their elongated limbs and double-jointed fingers giving them an almost ethereal appearance despite their towering height. The admiral's weathered face was set in hard lines as he scanned the room until his eyes found Maya. He approached her table with measured steps, the Altarians gliding behind him like tall shadows. Sergeant Chen, Admiral Chen said formally. I understand you've accepted an unusual challenge. Maya stood and saluted. Yes, sir. Sit down, soldier. This isn't an official briefing. The Admiral took a seat while the Altarians arranged themselves nearby, their four eyes tracking every movement with unsettling intensity. I need to understand what you think you're doing here. One of the Altarians, distinguished by intricate blue markings along its elongated skull, spoke in perfect but oddly accented English. Admiral, we have explained our position. This demonstration will prove the limitations of human physiology and precision applications. Maya felt her jaw clench but kept her expression neutral. The Altarian's tone carried the kind of academic detachment that suggested they viewed her as a specimen rather than a person. Admiral Chen's eyes flicked between Maya and the aliens. Zephyr of Swift Currents, you've served alongside human forces for 3 years. Surely you've observed our capabilities firsthand. The Altarian's head tilted in what might have been amusement. Indeed, Admiral. Humans excel at close-range combat, rapid tactical adaptation, and what you term thinking outside the box. However, precision marksmanship requires physiological attributes that humans simply lack. Your optical systems are primitive compared to most spacefaring species. Your nervous systems are too unstable for the micro-adjustments required at extreme ranges. Maya could feel the eyes of everyone in the commissary on them. The conversation had taken on the weight of a formal debate, with implications that stretched far beyond tomorrow's shot. What makes you so certain? Maya asked, ignoring the Admiral's sharp look. Zephyr of Swift Currents regarded her with what passed for surprise among its species. Your longest confirmed kill is approximately 2,000 meters, correct? Our analysis suggests that distance represents the practical limit of human capability under optimal conditions. The shot you propose is nearly double that range, under atmospheric conditions that would challenge even our finest marksmen. Your finest marksman, Maya repeated slowly. But you're not suggesting one of them could make this shot either. A second Altarian, this one with silver markings, interjected. The distance is extreme for any species. However, our superior visual acuity and neural stability would provide significant advantages. A human attempting such a shot is inadvisable. The commissary had gone completely silent. Maya could hear the hum of the air recyclers and the distant rumble of transport vehicles outside. She looked around the room, seeing human faces filled with everything from hope to skepticism. Inadvisable, she said, tasting the word, but not impossible. Admiral Chen leaned back in his chair, studying her with the expression of a man calculating odds. Sergeant, I need to ask you directly, what are your honest chances of making this shot? The question hung in the air like a challenge itself. Maya knew the truthful answer would disappoint everyone in the room. The variables were too numerous, the distance too extreme, the conditions too uncertain. By any reasonable calculation, her chances were minimal. But as she looked around the room, she saw something that changed her perspective. She saw Corporal Rodriguez, the young Marine whose brass casings she'd collected that morning, watching her with absolute faith. She saw Dr. Vasquez, who'd spent her evening calculating wind patterns to help a soldier she barely knew. She saw human faces filled with the kind of stubborn hope that had carried their species from a single world to 47 star systems. Sir, I can tell you that no human has ever made a shot like this before, Maya said carefully. I can tell you that the physics are against me. The conditions are challenging, and any rational analysis would suggest failure is likely. The Altarian's posture shifted slightly, a subtle indication of satisfaction. Maya continued, but I can also tell you that humans have a history of doing things that rational analysis suggests are impossible. We've survived ice ages, crossed oceans in wooden boats, and built civilizations on worlds that should have killed us. We're here because our ancestors refused to accept the limitations that seemed reasonable at the time. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. And you believe that applies to marksmanship as well? I believe it applies to everything humans do, sir. We don't succeed because we're physiologically superior. We succeed because we refuse to accept that success is impossible. Maya looked directly at Zephyr of Swift Currents. Tomorrow morning you'll see what human stubbornness looks like at 4,000 meters. The Altarian's four eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that indicated consideration. Very well, Sergeant Chen. We shall observe your attempt with great interest. However, we maintain our position regarding the practical limitations of your species. Admiral Chen stood, and the room began to stir with returning conversation. Sergeant, you have my permission to use any equipment or support you require. Make no mistake, though. This isn't just about you anymore. You're representing every human in the TDF. As the Admiral and the Altarians left, Maya felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders like armor. Tomorrow's shot would be measured in more than just meters and minutes of angle. It would be measured in the respect of allies, the confidence of fellow soldiers, and the future opportunities for her species in a galaxy that still saw them as newcomers. She returned to her barracks early, spending the evening cleaning her rifle and running calculations until her eyes burned. Outside her window, the three suns of Kepler 442b set in sequence, painting the sky in familiar shades of amber and rose. 4,000 meters. Impossible by any reasonable standard, but then humans had never been particularly reasonable. Dawn came early on Kepler 442b, the first of the three suns cresting the horizon while the other two still lurked below the jagged peaks. Maya had been awake for 2 hours, going through her pre-shot routine with methodical precision. Her rifle lay disassembled on the workbench, each component cleaned and inspected until it gleamed under the artificial lights. The weapon was a standard TDF M47 precision rifle, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. Not the most exotic round in the armory, but reliable and well-suited to long-range work. Maya had hand-loaded her own ammunition the night before, weighing each grain of powder and seating each bullet with micrometer precision. The rounds that lay in their foam padding represented the culmination of decades of ballistic science and personal experience. Captain Worthington arrived as Maya was reassembling the bolt mechanism. He carried a steaming cup of coffee and wore the expression of a man who hadn't slept particularly well. "Second thoughts?" he asked, settling into a nearby chair. Maya shook her head, threading the bolt home with practiced motions. "Third and fourth thoughts, actually. But I'm still here." "Good. The crowd's already gathering outside. Word reached the orbital station during the night. We've got observers coming down in shuttles, including some brass from TDF Command." Worthington sipped his coffee, studying her over the rim. No pressure, of course. Maya smiled grimly as she attached the rifle's scope, a high-magnification unit capable of resolving targets at extreme distances. The optics were human-manufactured, based on technology that had evolved from centuries of hunting and warfare. Not as sophisticated as alien systems, perhaps, but familiar and reliable. "Have you seen the target?" she asked. "Took a look through the spotting scope 20 minutes ago. It's there, all right. Solar panel array, bright blue against the gray stone. About the size of a large dinner plate, just like I said." Worthington paused. "Maya, I need to tell you something. The Altarians aren't the only ones watching this morning." Maya looked up from her rifle, sensing something significant in his tone. "There's a delegation from the hegemony here under a temporary ceasefire flag. They've heard about the challenge and requested permission to observe." Worthington set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "The word I'm getting from command is that they're not just curious spectators. They're intelligence officers here to assess human capabilities." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. The hegemony had been humanity's primary opponent for nearly a decade, their superior technology and larger populations giving them significant advantages in most engagements. If their intelligence services were paying attention to this shot, it meant they viewed human marksmanship as a potential threat worth evaluating. "So if I make this shot, I'm not just proving human capability to our allies," Maya said slowly. "I'm demonstrating it to our enemies as well." That's about the size of it. Success could enhance our reputation with both groups, but for very different reasons. Worthington stood, checking his watch. "Time to go." The observers are already in position. They walked through the settlement streets past the curious faces of colonists and off-duty soldiers. Maya carried her rifle in a soft case, the weight familiar and comforting against her shoulder. The morning air was crisp and clean, with only the faintest breeze stirring the crystalline sand. The shooting position had been established on a low hill overlooking the settlement, offering an unobstructed view of the target mountain. A small crowd had gathered, including Admiral Chen, the Altarian advisors, and several figures in dark uniforms that Maya didn't recognize. The hegemony observers, she assumed, keeping their distance from the main group. Dr. Vasquez stood near a weather monitoring station, tablet in hand and expression focused. She looked up as Maya approached and offered a thumbs-up gesture. "Conditions are as good as we're going to get," she called out. Wind is steady at 6 kilometers per hour from the southeast. Temperature inversion is minimal, humidity holding at 14%. Maya nodded her thanks and began setting up her position. She'd chosen a spot that offered both stability and comfort, knowing she might need several minutes to line up the shot properly. A sandbag rest supported the rifle's forestock, while a bipod provided additional stability. She settled into a prone position, her body forming the foundation for everything that would follow. Through her scope, the distant mountain appeared as a hazy gray mass. At maximum magnification, she could just make out the observation post perched on its peak, a dark smudge against the lighter stone. The solar panel array was invisible at this distance, lost in the atmospheric distortion and morning haze. Target acquired? Worthington asked quietly, settling beside her with a high-powered spotting scope. Not yet. I can see the structure, but the panel is beyond visual resolution. Maya adjusted her scope's focus, trying to coax more clarity from the optics. I'm going to need your eyes on this one. Worthington peered through his spotting scope, making minute adjustments to track the distant target. There, he said finally. I've got the panel. Bright blue rectangle oriented horizontally. Range. He consulted a laser rangefinder. 4,037 meters. Elevation angle -12 degrees. Maya began her calculations, factoring in bullet drop, wind drift, and the planet's gravitational field. The numbers were daunting. At that distance, her bullet would fall nearly 9 meters during its flight. The crosswind would push it another 2 meters to the left. Even tiny variations in velocity or atmospheric pressure could send the round meters off target. She chambered a round, the metallic click echoing across the hillside. Around her, the observers fell silent, understanding that the critical moment had arrived. Maya pressed her cheek against the rifle's stock, aligning her eye with the scope's exit pupil. The reticle danced slightly in her vision, a result of her heartbeat and the minute tremors that affected every human shooter. She controlled her breathing, taking slow, deep breaths and releasing them gradually. On the third exhale, she held her breath and began applying pressure to the trigger. The target was impossible to see, even at maximum magnification. Maya was shooting at a memory, a mental image constructed from Worthington's spotting and her own calculations. She aimed at empty air, trusting in physics and experience to guide her bullet across the impossible distance. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, the sharp crack of the shot echoing off the settlement's buildings. Through her scope, Maya tracked the bullet's path as best she could, watching for the telltale signs of impact or miss. At 4,000 meters, she would see the bullet strike several seconds before the sound reached her. Time of flight approximately 10 seconds, Worthington announced, his voice tense with concentration. Maya held her position, watching through the scope as the seconds ticked by. The mountain remained unchanged, showing no sign of impact. The silence stretched until it became painful. Miss, Worthington said quietly. No visible impact on target or surrounding area. A murmur ran through the crowd of observers. Maya could hear disappointment in some voices, relief in others. She chambered another round, her movements automatic and precise. Correction? She asked. Worthington studied the target area through his spotting scope. Difficult to say without seeing the impact. But based on your aim point, I'd estimate you were high and right. Maybe 2 meters high, 1 meter right. Maya made the necessary adjustments to her scope, clicking the turrets to compensate for the observed error. The corrections felt inadequate against the scale of the challenge, but they were all she had to work with. The second shot rang out across the settlement, identical in sound but carrying different hopes. Again, Maya tracked through her scope. Again, she waited for the long seconds of bullet flight to reveal success or failure. This time, she saw it. A tiny flash of light from the distant mountain, so brief she might have imagined it. But Worthington's sharp intake of breath confirmed what her eyes had detected. Impact, he said, his voice filled with wonder. I saw debris, small pieces falling from the target area. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Maya remained focused on her scope, trying to assess the damage. Had she hit the solar panel directly, or merely struck the structure nearby? Worthington's spotting scope provided the answer. Direct hit, he announced, his voice carrying across the hillside. The panel is destroyed. Complete target elimination at 4,037 meters. Maya finally allowed herself to relax, rolling away from the rifle and sitting up. Around her, human voices celebrated while alien observers maintained their careful silence. She could see Admiral Chen approaching, his weathered face split by an enormous grin. But it was the expression on Zephyr of Swift Current's elongated features that Maya found most satisfying. The Altarian's four eyes blinked in rapid sequence, a gesture she'd learned indicated surprise bordering on shock. 4,000 meters. Impossible by any reasonable standard. But then humans had never been particularly interested in reasonable standards. The silence that followed the cheering was more profound than the celebration itself. Maya watched as the various observers processed what they had just witnessed, their reactions painting a complex picture of surprise, calculation, and in some cases, concern. Admiral Chen reached her first, extending his hand with genuine warmth. "Outstanding work, Sergeant. That was one for the history books." Maya accepted the handshake, but her attention was drawn to the cluster of Altarian advisors who had moved closer to Worthington's spotting scope. Zephyr of Swift Currents was speaking rapidly in its native language, a melodic series of tones and harmonics that sounded almost like singing. The other Altarians responded with similar vocalizations, their elongated heads turning toward Maya, with what she was beginning to recognize as a new kind of assessment. "What are they saying?" she asked Admiral Chen quietly. "I'm not sure, but their translator unit is working overtime. Dr. Martinez from the linguistics department is monitoring their communications." The Admiral's expression grew thoughtful. "Whatever they're discussing, it's generating a lot of technical terminology." Dr. Elena Vasquez approached with her tablet, her face flushed with excitement. "Maya, I need to know exactly what adjustments you made between shots. The atmospheric modeling I'm seeing doesn't account for the precision you just demonstrated." Before Maya could respond, one of the hegemony observers broke away from his group and walked deliberately toward them. The being was humanoid in general structure but clearly alien, with pale gray skin and large dark eyes that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. It wore a dark uniform decorated with insignia that Maya didn't recognize. "Sergeant Chen," the alien said in accented but clear English, "I am Intelligence Coordinator Vex Null of the Hegemony Analysis Division. Your demonstration has been illuminating." Admiral Chen stepped forward slightly, his body language protective. "Coordinator, I remind you that this is a non-combat observation under ceasefire protocols." "Of course, Admiral. I merely wish to express professional appreciation for exceptional marksmanship." Vex Null's dark eyes remained fixed on Maya. "Tell me, Sergeant, how long have you been training for shots of this caliber?" Maya felt the weight of the question, understanding that her answer would be analyzed and reported throughout hegemony space. "I've been shooting since I was 12, sir, but I've never attempted anything at this distance before." The alien's head tilted slightly, a gesture that might have indicated surprise or skepticism. "Your first attempt at 4,000 meters resulted in success on the second shot?" "Yes, sir." Vex Null was quiet for a long moment, his large eyes studying Maya with uncomfortable intensity. "Remarkable. Our analysis suggested that human marksmanship capabilities peaked at approximately 2,000 meters under optimal conditions. Your demonstration suggests our assessments require revision." Captain Worthington joined the growing circle, carrying his spotting scope and wearing an expression of barely contained satisfaction. "Coordinator, I think you'll find that human capabilities often exceed initial assessments. We have a talent for surprising people." "Indeed." Vex Null's attention shifted to the rifle Maya had used. "May I examine your weapon system?" Admiral Chen nodded permission and Maya handed over her rifle for inspection. The hegemony officer examined it with professional interest, noting its construction and specifications. "Standard military equipment," Vex Null observed. "No exotic technologies or enhancement systems, purely mechanical action with optical sighting." He looked up at Maya. "You achieved this result with equipment that our technical analysis classified as primitive." Maya felt her temper flare but kept her voice level. "Sir, sometimes primitive equipment in skilled hands outperforms sophisticated systems in the wrong ones." For the first time, Vex Null's expression changed to something that might have been amusement. "An interesting philosophical position, Sergeant. We shall investigate its validity." As the hegemony officer moved away, Zephyr of Swift Currents approached with its characteristic fluid grace. The Altarian's four eyes focused on Maya with new intensity. Sergeant Chen, we must reassess our previous statements regarding human limitations, the alien said formally. Your achievement suggests capabilities that our physiological models did not predict. What kind of reassessment? Admiral Chen asked. We have conducted preliminary analysis of the shot parameters, another Altarian interjected, this one with golden markings along its skull. The precision required exceeds what our understanding of human neurology suggested was possible. Either our models are incomplete, or Sergeant Chen represents an exceptional example of her species. Maya felt uncomfortable being discussed like a laboratory specimen, but she understood the larger implications. I'm not sure I'm exceptional, she said carefully. I think I'm just stubborn enough to refuse to accept that something can't be done. Zephyr of Swift Currents tilted its head, and the gesture Maya had learned indicated deep consideration. Perhaps that stubbornness, as you term it, is itself an exceptional trait among sentient species. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her tablet, her expression puzzled. I'm seeing some anomalous data here. Maya, your second shot compensated for factors that my atmospheric models didn't even account for. How did you know to adjust for thermal variance? At that distance? Maya paused, trying to articulate something that had been more instinct than calculation. I didn't calculate it exactly, I felt it. The first shot told me something about how the air was moving between here and the target. I adjusted based on that feedback. You felt it? The golden-marked Altarian's voice carried a note of disbelief. You made micro-adjustments based on subjective interpretation of atmospheric conditions? That's not how precision shooting is supposed to work, Dr. Vasquez added, her scientific training clearly at odds with what she'd witnessed. Captain Worthington chuckled. Welcome to human marksmanship, Doctor. Half science, half art, and half pure bloody-mindedness. That's three halves, Admiral Chen pointed out with amusement. Exactly my point, sir. We don't operate by normal mathematics. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a young communications officer who snapped to attention before Admiral Chen. Sir, we're receiving priority transmissions from TDF Command, Altarian High Council, and 3 different hegemony intelligence branches. They all want detailed reports on this morning's demonstration. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. How did they hear about it so quickly? Sir, the orbital observation platforms recorded everything. The footage is already being analyzed at multiple locations. The officer hesitated. There's also something else, sir. We're receiving requests for Sergeant Chen to attempt similar demonstrations at other locations. Some of the requests are coming from species we've never worked with before. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Sir, what kind of requests? Admiral Chen studied the communication tablet the officer had handed him. It appears that word of your shot has spread beyond our immediate allies. The Centauri Republic wants to see a demonstration of human marksmanship capabilities. The Vegan Confederacy is requesting technical data on human training methods. And, he paused, his expression darkening, the Proxima Syndicate is asking about the availability of human mercenaries with extreme range capabilities. Mercenaries? Maya's voice came out sharper than she'd intended. Bex Null, who had been listening from nearby, stepped forward again. Sergeant Chen, your demonstration has implications beyond proving human capability to skeptical allies. You have shown that humans possess military assets that many species underestimated. This will change how your kind is viewed throughout the galaxy. Zephyr of Swift Currents added its own observation. The galactic community has generally classified humans as effective but predictable. Your achievement suggests unpredictability at ranges previously considered impossible. This introduces new variables into all strategic calculations. Maya looked around at the faces surrounding her, seeing the weight of unintended consequences in their expressions. She had wanted to prove that humans could exceed expectations, to show that her species deserved respect and better assignments. But the success had created new problems. Sir, she said to Admiral Chen, what happens now? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, studying the various alien observers who continued to discuss her shot in their native languages. Now, Sergeant, you've just changed the balance of power in this sector of space. Every military force is going to want to know what other capabilities humans have been hiding. We haven't been hiding anything, Maya protested. No, Admiral Chen agreed. But nobody else knew that. They're going to assume this was just the tip of the iceberg. As if to emphasize his point, another communication officer approached with urgent messages from 3 more star systems. Maya watched the growing pile of requests and demands, understanding for the first time that sometimes proving you can do something impossible creates more problems than failing ever could. 4,000 meters had seemed like the challenge. Now she was beginning to understand that the real test was what came after. 3 weeks after the shot heard across the galaxy, Maya found herself in a conference room aboard the TDF command ship Endeavour, surrounded by senior officers and alien dignitaries she'd never imagined meeting. The small room felt crowded with the weight of interstellar politics and the lingering effects of her 4,000-meter demonstration. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez, the highest-ranking TDF officer in the sector, gestured to a holographic display showing troop deployments across 17 star systems. "The requests keep coming in," she said, her weathered face reflecting years of command decisions. 12 different species want human sniper teams attached to their forces. The Altarians have tripled their cooperation requests. Even the hegemony has approached us through back channels about negotiating a conditional ceasefire based on mutual recognition of capabilities. Maya shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She'd been promoted to gunnery sergeant, but the rank felt hollow when she considered the chaos her single shot had created. "Ma'am, I fired 2 rounds at a solar panel. I didn't start a diplomatic revolution, didn't you?" The voice belonged to Ambassador Sarah Kim, the TDF senior diplomatic representative. "Sergeant, your demonstration has fundamentally altered how humanity is perceived in this region of space. We're no longer seen as lucky primitives who stumbled into galactic civilization. We're viewed as a species with hidden capabilities that could tip the balance in any conflict." Zephyr of Swift Currents, who had been invited to participate in the briefing, spoke from its position near the main display. "The Altarian High Council has completed its analysis of human marksmanship potential. Our conclusions have been shared with the Galactic Security Consortium, as per standard protocols for significant capability assessments." "And what were those conclusions?" Admiral Rodriguez asked. "That human neural architecture, while primitive by some standards, demonstrates unexpected advantages in high-stress precision applications. Your species appears capable of integrating multiple sensory inputs and environmental factors in ways that our computer models cannot predict or replicate." The Altarian's 4 eyes focused on Maya. "Sergeant, Chen's achievement was not an anomaly. It was a demonstration of species-wide potential that we had failed to recognize." Dr. Vasquez, who had been analyzing atmospheric data for 3 weeks, looked up from her tablet. "The hegemony has been conducting their own tests. Intelligence reports suggest they've been trying to train their own marksmen to replicate Maya's shot. So far, no success." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "They're trying to duplicate what I did?" "More than that," Ambassador Kim said grimly. "They're trying to understand whether other humans can do it too. And they're not the only ones." The holographic display shifted to show a star map with highlighted systems in various colors. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez pointed to the different markers with a laser pointer. "Red systems are requesting human sniper support for active conflicts. Yellow systems want training assistance to develop their own long-range capabilities. Blue systems are offering trade concessions in exchange for human military advisors." She paused at a cluster of purple markers. "Purple systems are expressing concern about human military expansion and want security guarantees that we won't use marksmanship capabilities against them." Maya stared at the display, seeing the ripple effects of her shot spreading across dozens of worlds. "Ma'am, how many humans can actually make shots like that?" Admiral Rodriguez exchanged glances with Ambassador Kim before answering. "That's the question everyone wants answered, and it's the one we're not sure how to address. The honest answer is that we don't know. We've never systematically tested human marksmen at extreme ranges because we assumed it was impossible. But now we have to assume it's possible," Ambassador Kim added. "Because if Sergeant Chen can do it, others probably can too. The problem is that we can't let anyone know how many humans have that capability without either revealing our strengths or our limitations." A new voice entered the conversation as Captain Worthington was escorted into the briefing room. He saluted the senior officers before taking a seat. his expression suggesting he'd been expecting this summons. "Captain," Admiral Rodriguez said, "you've been conducting preliminary assessments of other sniper teams. What's your evaluation?" Worthington consulted a datapad before responding. "Ma'am, I've tested 12 of our best marksmen at progressively longer ranges. 3 of them managed successful hits at 3,000 meters. 2 achieved hits at 3,500 meters. None have attempted 4,000 meters yet. But," he glanced at Maya, "I believe at least 4 of them could achieve what Sergeant Chen accomplished, given proper conditions and preparation." 4 confirmed. "With possibly more undiscovered," Ambassador Kim mused. "That's either a significant military asset or a minimal capability, depending on how it's presented." Zephyr of Swift Currents interjected. "The exact numbers matter less than the demonstrated principle. Sergeant Chen proved that humans can exceed previously understood limitations. This suggests that human capabilities in other areas may also be underestimated." Maya found herself becoming frustrated with being discussed as if she weren't present. "Respectfully, sirs, what does this mean for actual operations? Are we going to spend all our time trying to figure out who can shoot far? Or are we going to use these capabilities to help people?" The room fell silent for a moment before Admiral Rodriguez smiled. "Sergeant, that's exactly the right question. The strategic implications are important, but our mission remains the same: protect human colonies and support our allies. However," Ambassador Kim added, "we now have to navigate a much more complex political landscape. Every deployment decision we make will be scrutinized for evidence of human capabilities. Every mission success will be analyzed for techniques that might be replicated or countered." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her continued data analysis. "There's something else to consider. The atmospheric conditions on Kepler 442b were actually less than ideal for extreme-range shooting. Maya's shot might have been easier on a different world with better environmental factors." "Easier?" Maya asked. "Lower gravity, thinner atmosphere, more stable weather patterns. There are dozens of worlds where the physics would be more favorable for long-range marksmanship." Dr. Vasquez pulled up comparative atmospheric data. On New Geneva, for instance, the same shot might be possible at 5,000 meters or more. Admiral Rodriguez studied the data with interest. "That raises another question. Do we test these theoretical limits, or do we let other species wonder about them? Testing would provide valuable intelligence on human capabilities," Zephyr of Swift Currents observed. "But it would also reveal those capabilities to potential adversaries." Captain Worthington leaned forward. "Ma'am, there's something else to consider. Since word of the shot spread, I've had 6 requests from human marksmen asking for training to attempt similar ranges. The demonstration hasn't just changed how aliens see us, it's changed how we see ourselves." Maya felt a mix of pride and responsibility at his words. She had wanted to prove human capability, but she hadn't considered that success would inspire others to push their own limits. "What's the recommendation from TDF Command?" Ambassador Kim asked. Admiral Rodriguez activated a secure communication channel. "Command wants us to establish a specialized long-range marksmanship program. Identify and train humans who can perform at extreme distances, but keep the program classified. They want the capability without advertising its extent." "And the diplomatic requests?" Maya asked. "We'll provide limited sniper support to key allies, but we'll rotate personnel to avoid revealing individual capabilities. We'll share some training techniques while keeping others classified, and we'll let everyone continue to wonder exactly how many humans can make impossible shots." Zephyr of Swift Currents' head tilted in what Maya now recognized as approval. "A balanced approach. You maintain strategic ambiguity while demonstrating ongoing capability." Ambassador Kim nodded. "It's not perfect, but it gives us options while avoiding commitments we might not be able to fulfill." Maya looked around the room at the faces that were reshaping humanity's role in galactic affairs, based on her single shot. "Ma'am, what about the hegemony? Are they still requesting ceasefire negotiations?" "They are. But they're also accelerating their own weapons development programs and requesting intelligence assessments from species that have worked closely with humans." Admiral Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "Your shot may have prevented some conflicts by demonstrating human capabilities, but it's also convinced our enemies that they need to develop countermeasures." The briefing continued for another hour, covering logistics, training protocols, and diplomatic strategies. Maya listened to plans being made for a capability she demonstrated almost by accident, wondering if she should feel proud or concerned about the consequences. As the meeting concluded, Zephyr of swift currents approached her directly. Sergeant Chen, you have accomplished something that will be studied for generations. Your species' reputation has been fundamentally altered throughout this sector of space. Is that good or bad? Maya asked. The Altarian's four eyes blinked in sequence. It is change, and change, as your species has repeatedly demonstrated, is something humans handle better than most wise. 6 months later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the TDF training facility on New Geneva, watching a group of human marksmen attempt shots that would have been considered impossible before her demonstration on Kepler 442b. The facility had been constructed specifically for extreme-range marksmanship development, taking advantage of the planet's lower gravity and stable atmospheric conditions. Through the reinforced windows, she could see Corporal Martinez lining up a shot at 4,800 meters, while Sergeant Thompson prepared for an attempt at 5,200 meters. Both distances would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Now they were routine training exercises for the TDF's newly established long-range precision program. Remarkable progress, commented Dr. Chen Liwei, the civilian scientist who had been brought in to study the psychological and physiological factors that enabled extreme-range marksmanship. We've confirmed that 17 humans can consistently hit targets beyond 4,000 meters under optimal conditions. 8 of them can exceed 5,000 meters. Maya nodded, still amazed by how quickly human capabilities had expanded once limitations were removed from consideration. What's the theoretical maximum? Unknown. Every time we establish a new distance record, someone manages to exceed it within a few weeks. Dr. Chen consulted his tablet. Yesterday, Sergeant Kim achieved a successful hit at 6,100 meters. That's nearly twice the distance of your original shot. The achievement filled Maya with complex emotions. Pride in her species' capabilities mixed with concern about the arms race her demonstration had initiated. Intelligence reports suggested that multiple alien species were developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize human marksmen, while others were attempting to recruit human mercenaries for their own conflicts. Captain Worthington entered the observation area, carrying reports from recent deployments. His expression reflected the mixed successes and complications that had defined the past 6 months. How are our people performing in the field? Maya asked. Better than anyone expected, including ourselves. Team Alpha prevented a massacre on Rigel 7 by eliminating hegemony artillery positions from 8 kilometers away. Team Beta ended a 3-month siege on New Perth with a single shot that took out the enemy command structure. Worthington paused, his expression growing more serious. But we're also seeing increased targeting of human sniper teams. The enemy has figured out how dangerous we can be at extreme ranges. Maya had been expecting this development. Success always generated adaptation from opponents. Casualties? Lower than projected, actually. The enemy's attempts to neutralize our marksmen have been largely unsuccessful because they're still underestimating human adaptability. They prepare countermeasures for the tactics we used last month. But we've already moved on to new approaches. Through the windows, they watched as Corporal Martinez's shot found its target, a small metal disc barely visible to the naked eye. The achievement would have been headline news 6 months ago. Now it merited only a brief notation in training records. Ma'am? An aide approached with a priority communication. You have an incoming transmission from Ambassador Kim. She says it's regarding the Galactic Security Consortium's annual assessment. Maya accepted the communication tablet, noting the security encryption that indicated sensitive diplomatic content. Ambassador Kim's image appeared on the screen, her expression carrying the satisfaction of successful negotiations. Gunnery Sergeant Chen, the ambassador began, I wanted to personally inform you of the consortium's final report on human military capabilities. Your demonstration has been officially classified as a paradigm shift event that requires fundamental reassessment of human strategic value. What does that mean in practical terms, ma'am? It means humanity has been upgraded from useful auxiliary forces to essential strategic partners in 3 major defense treaties. Our colony protection agreements have been expanded, our trade relationships have improved, and several species that previously ignored us are now actively seeking alliance discussions. Maya felt a surge of satisfaction, but Ambassador Kim wasn't finished. However, the hegemony has also escalated their threat assessment of human forces. They've initiated development of what they're calling human-specific countermeasures and have increased intelligence-gathering operations in human space. Your shot may have improved our standing with allies, but it's also convinced our enemies that we're more dangerous than they previously believed. The communication ended, leaving Maya to contemplate the long-term consequences of her 4,000-meter shot. She had wanted to prove human capability and earn respect for her species. In that regard, she had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. But success had brought new responsibilities and new dangers. Dr. Chen Liwei looked up from his observations of the training exercise. "Sergeant, there's something I've been meaning to discuss with you. Our analysis of human marksmanship capabilities has revealed some interesting patterns." "What kind of patterns?" "The ability to exceed theoretical limitations isn't limited to shooting. We're seeing similar phenomena in other precision-based human activities. Pilots flying beyond calculated performance envelopes. Engineers solving problems that computer models say are impossible. Even surgeons performing procedures with precision that should be physiologically unattainable." Maya considered this revelation. "You're saying the shooting ability is part of something larger?" "I'm saying that your 4,000-meter shot may have revealed a fundamental characteristic of human neurology that we never properly understood. Your species appears to be capable of integrating conscious calculation with subconscious pattern recognition in ways that produce results beyond pure technical analysis." Captain Worthington joined the conversation. "In other words, humans are capable of being impossible when the situation demands it." "That's actually not a bad summary," Dr. Chen agreed. "Your species consistently achieves results that contradict initial assessments, and that capability appears to be scalable under the right conditions." Through the windows, they watched as Sergeant Thompson's 5,000-meter shot struck its target, another achievement that would have been inconceivable before Maya's demonstration. The progression from impossible to routine had taken less than 6 months. An alarm chimed softly, indicating an incoming priority message. Maya's communication device activated automatically, displaying Admiral Rodriguez's image. "Gunnery Sergeant Chen, we have a situation developing in the Proxima sector. Hegemony forces have surrounded the human colony on Kepler 186F and are demanding surrender. They've positioned their artillery beyond the range of conventional defensive systems." Maya felt her pulse quicken. "Ma'am, what's the maximum range of their positions?" "Approximately 7,000 meters from the colony's defensive perimeter. Beyond the capability of standard military equipment, but..." Admiral Rodriguez paused meaningfully. "Well, within the theoretical range of human marksmen under optimal conditions." The request was clear without being explicitly stated. Maya looked out at the training facility where human marksmen were routinely achieving impossible shots, then back at the Admiral's image. "Ma'am, when do we deploy?" "Your transport leaves in 2 hours. "And Sergeant?" Admiral Rodriguez smiled slightly. "Pack your rifle. It looks like the galaxy is about to learn that 4,000 meters was just the beginning." Maya left the observation deck with a sense of completion and anticipation. Her original shot had been about proving human capability to skeptical allies. This new mission would be about demonstrating that capability to enemies who still underestimated what humans could achieve when their homes and families were threatened. She had spent 6 months watching her species expand beyond limitations that had seemed absolute. Now it was time to show the galaxy that human marksmanship wasn't just about distance records or training achievements. It was about protecting the people who mattered most, regardless of how impossible the shot might seem. As her transport lifted off from New Geneva, Maya checked her rifle one final time and calculated the atmospheric conditions on Kepler 186F. 7,000 meters in an alien atmosphere, with the lives of an entire colony depending on precision and determination. She had started this journey by collecting brass casings in the aftermath of a battle. Just a soldier doing her job and cleaning up after the fighting was done. She was ending it as humanities, proof that impossible was just another word for something nobody had tried hard enough to achieve. The galaxy had finally learned what humans were capable of when they refused to accept that something couldn't be done, and that lesson was just beginning.